What is up, homies? Christian back at it again on a Twin Sons action figure close-up. And today I have for us something a little different. As you know, we just had the new year pass by. Happy 2021, everyone. And I have for us sort of my top figures of 2020. Now, obviously, this is only a small handful of all the figures that came out in 2020. But as you can imagine, they don't all fit in the studio. So I have for us here just what I consider, I would say, the top 5 figures. And I know you're looking at these figures and going, Christian, can you count? There's more than 5. To which I say, I can sort of count. Not too good at it. So I have these figures selected all for different reasons. And I just figured I'd go over what I think were some of the highlights of the year for figures. And we're gonna start off with, just going at random here, Mandalorian Incinerator. I know we just looked at him recently, so he's been fresh in my mind. And we're just gonna fix his backpack real quick. But this figure builds off that new Stormtrooper base, which is a really nice body. I cannot find an actual regular Stormtrooper for the life of me that's using it. So I had to settle for the Incinerator Trooper, but this is a great figure this year. It's probably actually better than the regular Stormtrooper because, I mean, it's red. Need I say more? The colors on this figure were really striking. The new body is really nice. These knees look fantastic. Hasbro nailed the paint job on them with everything on it. I'm not going to do a full review of each figure, just sort of highlighting why each one was in my top 5. So, loved the backpack on him, even if it does like to come undone, which is funny because at first I didn't want to at all, but I did it one time and sort of broke the seal on it, and now it can never stay on. But even if it comes off, it never looks bad. It just sort of hangs a little bit lower. But when he's on the shelf, you can't really tell. This new Stormtrooper helmet, I really like. I have the old one right here to compare it. This old one is great too, but this new one definitely takes from like the Return of the Jedi Mandalorian era of the helmets, where they're a little bit squatter, a little bit wider, and this one is off of A New Hope, obviously, is because it's taller, a little bit more bucket-like than this one. But loving this new body. Overall improved the design of the figure, even though it has single jointed elbows. The elbows have better articulation than the old ones. So I just think Hasbro did a great job in 2020 bringing us this new Stormtrooper base and this Incinerator for bringing out that red and the big flamethrower. And I mean, the fire effect, come on, look at that. Looks so good. So those are the reasons I brought him into my top 5 figures. So let's see if he plays nice and he wants to sit back down. He does. All right, I'll address the elephant in the room. So you guys go, Christian, there's 5 figures, you claim, but I'm looking at 8 figures right now. So, because of the new head, I think Han may be the one in my top 5. But you see, the problem with this Endor Han is not a problem at all. It's the fact that you can't sort of just pick him because it's just, there's supposed to be 3 of them. So that's why I counted these 3 guys as one figure, because you really can't have one without the other. So I'm just gonna count them as one figure because it's my year in review and I can. So the Han just looks, look at that head sculpt. It just knocks it out of the water here. Such a good head sculpt. A little bit of reuse in the legs and stuff, but this top I'm pretty sure is all new. It looks great. This trench coat just flows very nicely on him. It lays very naturally. Just, what is there not to love? But as I was thinking about this Han, I'm like, but you know, this Endor Luke looks really good. Looks really nice. The new head sculpt, the fact that the helmet comes off and on, so you can choose his look. Sure, it's all reuse, but this poncho, it's grown on me. Still gets that flying squirrel effect sometimes, but in some poses, it looks really good. And I mean, Endor Luke with the poncho has always been one of my favorite Lukes. The helmet, the poncho, and just the glove and this part, everything about it looks really good. They really nailed the face sculpt on him. I do wish they had more new parts on him, which is the reason why I wouldn't have him be the number one of these 3 figures. I think I'd have to go to Han for that. But as I was looking at Luke, I'm like, well, you can't forget the princess. You can't forget Leia. That happens. You guys all know that. You cannot forget Princess Leia. The head sculpt looks really good. The fact that they actually bothered sculpting hair and the buns and stuff underneath the helmet looks really good. The only problem with her was that waist gap. And that waist gap was killing me, which is why I couldn't have her be the number one of these 3 figures. So, I think for that goes to everyone's favorite smuggler, Han. I think Han would be the number one, but again, I consider these like a trio of figures. You really cannot have one without the other, so that's why I've chosen to put them all as one figure in my top 5. Look at these guys all set back up again. All right. And now that we're back and all set up, let's look at Plo Koon next. Plo Koon, he's in my top 5 for one reason, and one reason only. And it's just like Han, this head. I mean, just look at the detail on this guy's head. It is so amazing. It really went all out. This looks exactly like Plo Koon does in the movies. And I know people can say it's easier because it's an alien and not an actor's head sculpt. But at the same time, the amount of detail that they put into this, I mean, you can see the wrinkles in between his brow right there. I mean, look at that. All the wrinkling, little podules and modules and stuff that are on his head. It just looks really good. I couldn't name him number 1 best figure though, because at the same time, half of this figure isn't, 90% of this figure isn't new. This is all Mace Windu's body reused with just new hands and a new head and a new saber. Speaking of it, that's another thing. The saber, they really nailed the saber. The amount of detail they put into it on that paint app, they put that little red dot there and stuff, really just stood out to me. I know it's an odd thing to stand out as the saber for a figure, but it really did. So that's what I was thinking about when I picked them, between the head and that saber. Just really good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the reuse of the Mace body. I feel like it is a little bit big for Plo Koon. I usually imagine him just a little bit, like shrink down the body by like 10% for some reason. But this head sculpt knocks out of the park and makes it easily one of the best figures of this year. We're finally starting to get those prequel Jedi that we've been lacking, and they really did not slack on these prequel Jedi. Now, so the last figures I could all interchange on a daily basis on the numbering orders. These next 2 figures are definitely my top 2, and they interchange between 1 and 2 every time I play with each one because I love them both so much. So they're both tied for number 1 figure of the year. Let's start off with the Count. I mean, I could just say this Count Dooku figure. Need I say more? Because everything about this figure, they knocked it out of the park. We had to wait a ridiculously long time for Count Dooku in the Black Series, but I'm glad we did, because that meant we got the face printing, we've got the improved articulation schemes, we have the better face sculpts. I mean, Hasbro's face sculpts have always been there, but there's no denying that they've still gotten better over the years. The lightsaber, while not as detailed as Plo Koon's, they really knocked out of the park with the saber still. They put the little red activation switch down there. Mine's a little muddled over, but that's just a figure that I have. That's the issue. Yours would probably not look like that. So between that, the I'm just gonna put that down. The excellent soft goods. The cloak just flows very naturally. He looks very regal in these cloaks, just like he does in the movie. The amazing head sculpt. Let me see if I can get him to look up at you. There we go. Just look at that. The underbody was sculpted very well. It looks exactly proportionate to what Christopher Lee looked like in the movie. You know, I look at this figure, and every time I look at him, I'm like, this is the best figure of 2020, right here. But the issue with that is that I say that, and then I pick up Cad Bane. And then every time I pick up Cad Bane, I'm like, this is the figure of 2020. You see, I love Count Dooku. I love him in the prequels. He's underutilized. He's underrated. Christopher Lee did a great job acting with him and stuff. He's great. You feel bad for Count Dooku, really, in the movies and stuff. But the figure is still an old man with a lightsaber. So it looks really good. And that's why he's in my top 5. Probably number 1 or number 2. Again, they always interchange. But in terms of playability, Cad Bane is just really fun to play with. I mean, for one thing, there's so many, this costume design-wise, it's not a knock on the Dooku figure itself, because the costume design is very different in the movies. You have so much going on here. So much. You got everything here. So much going on in the abdomen. He's got more modules here. The head, he's got the little, I don't even know what they're called. He's got the blasters, the little jet booster things on the bottom that you can turn. So I know some people have been asking if you can turn that. You can. And it's just, Cad Bane as a character is more playable than Count Dooku. Count Dooku won't be doing too much. This guy, you can nail him in a ton of poses with this new articulation scheme. You can do so much with him. We finally got a Cad Bane figure. Hasbro really knocked it out of the park with Cad Bane. There's so much going on here. The articulation is great. You can actually get him to like hold up his pistols on the side and stuff. The hat perfectly fits. Like, does not come off. Really nice thing. I've had too many figures where the hats come off really easily. So that, for some reason, just really stood out to me. And as soon as I do that, but that was my fault. I knocked it off with my finger. But of course, as soon as I say that, that happens. But let's address my one issue with the figure. I know Cad Bane has a bulbous head, but I feel like this forehead is still a bit too big. Like, you could have trimmed off that top, like, and then have it like right there. Would have been fine. But they probably had to have it a little bit bigger so the hat could fit better on the head, which is a sacrifice I'm willing to take, because when you put the hat on, the head does not look bulbous. Head looks perfectly sized. So in terms of sheer playability, and I mean, that's what you're looking for in an action figure. Let's be honest here, they're toys. They're meant to be played with and stuff. I'd have to say Cad Bane. Now, however, I have more connection and I like the Count Dooku character more, which makes me want to put that one as number 1. So this is an action figure review show. So I think what I would have to do is put Cad Bane as figure of the year, just based off the fact that in terms of being an action figure, he's a better action figure. You can do with him, he has a lot more. When I'm reaching for a figure to play with and just mess around with, I'm going to reach for Cad Bane before I reach for Count Dooku. Even though the Count Dooku, in my opinion, I think looks better, just simply because it's based off of the likeness of a real actor. It really stands out how good it is. But the Cad Bane looks really good too. You guys see the issue here. You can't really compare them. Obviously you can, because they're both 6-inch Hasbro Black Series figures, but at the same time, they're such different figures, such different characters, you can't compare them. But in terms of playability, being an action figure, just being a damn good figure, I have to give it to Cad Bane. In terms of being a figure we finally got, and I'm happy we waited because Hasbro really knocked it out of the park, Dooku. So all in all, Hasbro really knocked it out of the park this year. They put out really good figures. Not as many as previous years, but I'd rather have quality than the quantity. And we really had quality this year. It was a tough year to pick out my top 5 figures. People will say top 8 figures, to which I say, yes, you're right. But I'm going to keep saying top 5 because I count those 3 as one. So here's to hoping that this year has even better figures, because if we get even better figures, we're going to be approaching import level qualities soon, the way Hasbro's going. And I like to see that because these are a lot more budget and collector friendly, being a lot cheaper. So it's really nice to see just that this year Hasbro really stepped up their game. Really did a great job bringing some great figures, and I'm just really happy about that. Let me know in the comments down below what your top 5 figures of the year were. And if you're on Instagram, take some pictures of them and tag us in it, Twin Sons Outpost. I really want to see what you guys think is the top 5 figures of this year. So, I hope everyone has a great 2021. Hope everyone had a great holiday season. And until next time, may the force be with you.